I've told the story many times, and it's one of those stories that if you've been around, you've heard this in church, told by many pastors. But there's a story told about this young boy who was selling a litter of puppies. And he had a big sign that said, "Religious puppies, $10 a piece." And a man walked by and said, "Religious puppies? Oh, wow, what kind of puppies are these?" He says, "Oh, they're $10. And they are Baptist puppies." He said, "Baptist puppies? Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I'm not quite sure I'm ready for a puppy yet. I'll just come back later." So he comes back 3 weeks, and there's a sign that says, "Religious puppies, $25 a piece." And the guy says, "Hey, what happened to these puppies? They were $10. He goes, "That's because they changed." He said, "They changed?" He goes, "Yeah, they're Methodist puppies now." He says, "Methodist puppies? What happened?" "Their eyes were opened." Now, I've told that story many times, but that's been told by Baptists, about Methodists, about Presbyterians, about Episcopals. It's one of those stories everybody tells about each other. But just for fun, let me ask, how many of you grew up in the Methodist church? Raise your hand. About half. You know, a lot of us did not grow up in Methodist church. Now, for me, my religious affiliation, I told you before, was MA. I was not religious. I did not grow up in a religious household. We did not go to church. Our only connection to church was my grandma's church, which that was like every other Easter maybe we went to. And so for me, even then, I never connected grandma's church to Methodist church. And y'all don't take offense, but my grandma's church, what I thought church was, for a long time, I didn't even connect it to Jesus. I thought it was a place he went and had casseroles and ate, and a bunch of old, nice, little gray-haired ladies loved on you and pinched your cheeks and kissed you and all that. That was my grandma's church for me. And so that's what I knew about church, and so I didn't have any concept that was a Methodist church. But it was, and so I didn't have this connection to the Methodist church. Now, I did get saved in the Methodist church. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But when I got saved, even then, I did not say that was the Methodist church. That was Grandma's church, Grandpa's church. And then when I went to the military, I wanted to get involved in the services, in the religious services. And so I didn't know where to go. And so in the military, you have two options. Either you were Protestant or Catholic. I didn't know which one was which. I knew I liked the Protestant chaplain. I liked the Catholic pastor. I didn't know the difference. And so I told someone, well, what did you go to when you were home? I said, I went to Grandma's church. Well, what did Grandma's church do? And I told my grandma's church, I said, you're Protestant. Okay. So I went this way. And so that was my extent of my religious knowledge of what denominations were and all these things were. And so on the ship, I was just a Protestant. I didn't know the distinctives of each denomination. I just knew Christ crucified, original, and third day. And so when I heard my call to ministry, I had to decide, okay, where was I going to serve at and all this. So we had connections like that. But when it came time for me to say, okay, where am I going to invest my life in, where I'm going to serve as a pastor, I had to look and study, and I did. It wasn't just a given that I was going to go to Methodist church. My mentor was a Nazarene minister. My uncles and aunts were all Baptists. I had friends who were Church of Christ, and they were all trying to say, Mary, come to the dark side. It was all those. And so I had to dig in deep and say, okay, what do you believe? Why do you believe? How do you do this? And when I did all that, I studied, I prayed, I chose to come to the Methodist church because I fell in love with what the Methodist church taught, how it did things. And I love the emphasis that it had on the approach to Scripture, on the creeds of the church, where it's not just the fling-by-night thing, it's connected to the historic church. I love the idea that the whole emphasis is on loving God with your heart and your mind. And that you're supposed to love people and transform the world. It's not just you and Jesus, it's you and others come together to make a difference out there. And that just grabbed hold of me, and I fell in love with it. So I chose the Methodist Church. Now, I always want to add this caveat to this, is that if someone says, what are you? I always say, well, I'm a Christian first. then I'm a Methodist. I'm a Christian who happens to go to a Methodist church. I'm not a Methodist who just happens to be a Christian. I choose, but understand that my belief system, all of this, is centered around Jesus Christ. Amen. It is Him. It is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that is why the Methodist Church attracts me, because that's really how it got its start. The Methodist Church was never intended to be a denomination. It was our founder, John Wesley. We're going to talk more about in a minute. He just sought to reform the Anglican Church by giving back to the gospel of Jesus Christ. He said, you are so focused on morals, you are so focused on ethics, you're so focused on trying to get people to be good people with good manners, that you forget that this is a gospel of sinners, of a loving God who came and saved us and delivered us. And that's a message for everyone, not just the elite, not just those who are proper in society, but it's for the bottom of the barrel, it's for the top of the barrel. It's for everyone. And so when the gospel is proclaimed, that's the Methodist Church. That's why, the Methodist Church, one thing that stands out, people say, well, what does the Methodist Church believe? Well, I'll tell you what we believe. We said it this morning. The Apostles' Creed. The Methodist Church is not a creedal church. We have the Apostles' Creed. We have the Nicene Creed. Those are the historic creeds of the faith. But if you want to list that, well, you have to believe A, B, C, and D in order to be a Methodist, that's not how it works. I guarantee you that in this sanctuary right now, we have people who have different opinions when it comes to should women be in ministry or not. We have different opinions on how a person should be baptized. But you know what? Those are minor things. What we agree on, praise Christ, crucified, dead, and buried, rose on the third day. And that's what people say. Well, the question I get asked most often is this. What is the difference between a Methodist and a Baptist? And of course, you always say, well, they always assume it's the Baptist, the baptism, okay? Methodist sprinkle and Methodist sprinkle, baptismal, Baptist immerse. Get it out. But did y'all know? Y'all see here, Methodist immerse, we do that too. So it's not that. In fact, I was saying that there's very little difference between denominations, because if a church is proclaiming Jesus Christ crucified, dead, and buried, third day, rose from the dead, that is the gospel, and that's what a church should be about, not about minor things. We have differences about little things, but the thing that unites us is great. John Wesley had a saying, in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, in all things, love. And that means we can have disagreements about little things, but we all come together under the lordship of Jesus Christ and say we love each other. And so over the next few weeks, we are going to talk about a little bit about what makes the Methodist Church distinctive. Why, I fell in love with it. Well, I hope you will fall in love with it too. I want to learn more about what it is we believe. Now, real quick, the thing that I think starts off with our theological underpinnings is the emphasis on God's grace, God's universal grace for all. Okay? Now, understand that John Wesley, when he started Methodist Church, and this is History 101 Methodist Church, John Wesley was an Anglican priest in the Anglican Church. He was a man who was all about do. So if you say, what was his theology? It was do. Okay? Because he was always trying to earn God's love and salvation. He had a group of men that met at Oxford, and they were so adamant about doing what the Bible says, about pleasing God by doing this and doing that. They, where it said, visit those in prison. They had a system they had to do every day. Pray every day. Do this. And they were so methodical about how they approached religion that the other Christians gave a nickname. Guess what the nickname was? Methodist. It's because they were so methodical how they did things. But the thing was, he was never happy doing. He never felt he earned God's love. Always falling short. He went to the Americas, to Georgia, thinking, okay, if I go become a missionary, I will save a soul, and that will convince me that God loves me, I'll be okay. He went there and failed miserably. Failed so bad that not only he fell in love with a girl who didn't fall in love with him. Story goes is that he fell in love with her. She did not return that. She got engaged to a guy. They came for communion. He refused communion to them. telling everybody else that they were doing something bad. And so her father was the governor, put out an arrest warrant for John Wesley. He had to flee the Americas for his life. It was on a ship on the way back to England that a big storm came. And he thought he was going to die. He thought everybody's going to die. But there was a group of Moravian Christians, including kids, who were singing hymns and weren't scared at all. And he went up to these Christians and said, Pastor, are not your people afraid of dying? He goes, they're Christians. He goes, okay, but aren't they afraid of dying? And the pastor says, do you know Jesus? And John Wesley is an Anglican priest. He says, I know that Jesus, the theological answer, is the Savior of the world. And the pastor looked at him and says, yes, but has he saved you? And that just sunk on him. And he realized that he didn't know. And so he went to home and just depressed, and then he went to a place called Alder's Gate. You'll hear Methodist Church, we'll talk about the Alder's Gate. In fact, I guarantee you, go look around Methodist churches, count how many will call it Alder's Gate and not Methodist Church. It's because it was at Alder's Gate, this little bitty street in England, where he went into a Bible study. He didn't want to go, he was taking, kicking, and screaming, but he sat down there, and they were reading from Luther's preface to the book of Romans, and then he understood, I was saved by grace. And his words were, I understood for the first time then and there that it was by grace I was saved, that God did love me, that God did save me. And he said, I felt my heart strangely warmed. In other words, it wasn't about do. It was about just be. Just let God love you. Just accept his grace. And so he accepted that. And from that point on, he changed. And he went back to this message of you're saved by grace, which we know was the gospel because it is the gospel. He went to the church, and the church says, no, you don't want to preach that. That's dangerous. At that same time, George Whitefield, you've probably heard of him at your history classes. He was out there preaching, started the Great Awakening, and he came to John Wesley and said, you know what, I can't be at the tree stump. Can you come preach for me? Not on a pulpit, at a tree stump, because he went to where the people were. And John Wesley said, I don't feel comfortable with that. He said, well, just give it a go. And of course, he went, preached, and this wonderful idea of taking the gospel to everyone. And that started the Methodist movement. Now, one word that can emphasize all this is grace, 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 grace. Now, we Methodists, we're not the only ones to talk about grace, but we talk about it an awful lot. And we're going to talk about this series a whole lot about grace. But it comes back to our understanding of who God is and how God works. Now, this is where we're going to put on our theological nerd hat, okay? So everybody's kind of like this, okay? You're going to be a theological nerd for a second, okay? In the Anglican Church, the idea was that you were going to be a good Christian with good manners, and that was what it meant to be a respectable person in society. That's what faith was. In the world, the theology was based in what was called Calvinism. Now, y'all heard that term, Calvinism, Arminianism, okay? Calvinism is a big idea, and basically Calvinism was about God's sovereignty, okay? So Calvinist was this lawyer who was a pastor, and everything about God's sovereignty. And so his idea was that since God is sovereign, you can't go against God. Everything is already planned out. That means that God chose ahead of time who would be saved and who wouldn't. And so basically this all became the idea that God already had certain people in mind he chose, and everybody else was just out cold. Now, there are some people saying, it doesn't sound too right because we think Jesus is out in the whole world and people choose to come to him. And so there's this thing called the Synod of Dort. Okay, so if y'all want to impress your friends, say, what's your opinion about the Synod of Dort? You know? And in 1618, they met with this, and it wasn't John Calvin, he's already dead and gone, but his followers. And so they came and said, okay, let's debate these things. But instead of debating these things, the Calvinists looked at the followers of Jacob Arminius and says, your beliefs are heretical. If you teach it, you will die. And they did. And so there was wars fought over this. But when John Wesley started teaching grace, he said, this Calvinism all comes in. So we're going to go real brief, a real thing real quick, on the 5 points of Calvinism, okay? And the Wesley's response. If you've been in a church that taught Calvinism, no doubt you've heard TULIP. Okay, that's how you're taught the 5 major points of doctrine. First is total depravity, that mankind is completely sinful, that there's nothing good in you whatsoever, that you can never choose God because there's nothing good in you that would choose God. Okay? And because of that, you would never choose God, so God had to going to choose you. God is sovereign, so there's unconditional election. God chose you who would be saved. Since God chose you, and God knew who would be saved and wouldn't, when Jesus went to the cross, guess who he died for? He didn't die for the world. He didn't die for everybody. He died for the elect. So Jesus didn't die for everybody. He died for a certain few. And because God is sovereign and Christ died for you, you can't say no. So even if you don't want to be a Christian, if you're part of the elect, you're going to be a Christian. That's irresistible grace. And because you can't say no, because God chose you and Christ died for you, you have no say in the matter. That means P, preservation of the saints, whereas once saved, always saved, because you can't leave. Well, John Wesley looked at this, and this is one of the things he says, okay, we agree. In fact, John Wesley said, I am a hair's breadth away from Calvinism. He says, I agree with total Calvin. There is nothing good. Yes, we're sinful. You can't argue that. Mankind is sinful. But he says, you forgot that God is at work in the world. God's grace goes out. And God's grace calls us in. And so he says, all are sinful, but there's conditional election. That means that God did not say, okay, you get saved. Because if he did that, if he chose you to be saved and you not to be saved, that means that God made you for the sole purpose of sending you to hell. That's terrible. And so he said, God knows the way through Christ. This is the means, this is the way. Jesus died for everybody, unlimited atonement. And then, but here's the thing. You have a say in the matter. God calls, God invites you. But you can say yes or no. The choice is yours. Remember the story of the rich young ruler that Jesus came and said, you sell everything you have, follow me? He said no, and Jesus let him go. Because Jesus respects our free will. And then because that, we don't teach perseverance saints, which we do, but just in a different way. Because in Romans 8 it says there's nothing that can separate us from the love of Jesus Christ. We have the assurance of salvation knowing that we are saved. Now, God's not going to hold you against your will. But understand that when Christ died for your sins, when you accept Him, He died for all your past sins. He died for all your future sins. He died for you. And you're covered by the blood of Christ. Now, if we had more time, I would love this, but go through and read Charles Wesley's hymns. And look, and you'll find these themes throughout. And it's beautiful. But what does all this mean? Well, the four alls of salvation. This is how we sum this up. Wesley's four alls. All have sinned. Everybody here has sinned. Everybody here is guilty. You know who in here deserves hell? We all do. Everybody does. But God loved us so much that He sent His Son to die for us. And that means all can be saved. That means it doesn't matter how wretched you were, how much education you have, it doesn't matter if you're American, Chinese, it doesn't matter. If you hear the voice of God, if you experience His grace, and you feel that wooing, and you say, I accept Christ, the invitation's open to you as God's whosoever policy, as Max Gabe said. And then all can know they can be saved. And then finally, we're going to talk about this in a few weeks, all can be saved uttermost. One of the things that attracted me to Methodist Church is that it's not about just getting to heaven. Jesus didn't save you just so that you can be who you are and go to heaven. No, He changed you so that we can start reversing the impact of the fall, and you can become more and more like Jesus Christ. We call it sanctifying grace. We're going to talk more about that. But that God's at work in you to perfect you to become like Christ, where we can love God with our whole heart, mind, soul, strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. That's beautiful. But this, taking all this, what does this mean? It means this is all personal. I've sinned. I need to accept Christ. I told you all a story. You all been here for a while. You know my story. I did not grow up in a church, but at the age of 17, out of the blue, there was no tragedy in my life. Nothing terrible happened. It was just out of the blue. I had a desire to want to know God. I don't know where it came from. I want to know. Had no clue. I started praying at night. Didn't know who I was praying to. And I kept praying, said, God, if you're there, show me, reveal yourself, teach me something. I gathered little religious tracts. I watched movies. I tried to find a Bible, but you all know if you don't grow up in a religious household, you don't have Bibles laying around everywhere. And so so they're actually hard to find, except for your grandma's Bible in the closet, which is this big, it's a King James version, and it has a painting of David holding a severed head of Goliath that scared you half to death, so you dared not get with it, because it was terrifying. But this went on a whole summer of me saying, God, show me. One more. And if they would have it, one night my dad was invited to my grandpa and my grandma's church, and he gave his heart to Christ, came home and told me and my twin that we were going to church whether we wanted to or not. And so that next night, I went there. Have y'all ever walked into a place where you knew something great was going to happen? Where you can cut the holiness with a knife, and you knew that God was present? And I sat in that pew, and the preacher, I can't tell you exactly what he said, but I know at the end of the sermon, he said, someone here has been looking for Christ. Someone here has been asking to know him, and he wants to know you. Do you want to know him? And I'm like, yes. And then he said, okay, come down, let's pray. Now, I didn't go down, okay? So that pastor probably thought that revival was a bust because no one came down. But I did not go down because I've told y'all, in my household, we did not cry. Have y'all ever been at that point where you knew if you just flickered a finger that you were going to start crying? And so I knew if I did that, I would start crying and smacking my head by my dad, and I wasn't going to risk that. You know, people think I was crying because I got hit by my dad. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But I said yes to Christ there. And I knew what this was. I was the lost sheep that the shepherd went after and found. That's my story. What's yours? Dear Heavenly and Gracious Father, Lord, we love you so much. Thank you for all you do for us. Lord, there's so much more we can discuss with this, and there's so much more we need to discuss with this. But Lord, I pray that what we leave here with is this, to know that we need you, that we all have sinned, fall short of the glory of God, but that you so loved the world that you gave us Jesus Christ. That while we were yet still sinners, Christ died for the ungodly. Lord, I pray that we all would receive that we would know that for ourselves, and it would become a reality for us, and that we would